This is part 34 of my series on my N-gauge model railway project. Previous parts cover the project from its inception through the creation of the baseboard, selection and laying of track, building of scenic items, obtaining rolling stock, etc. The project is ongoing. This part deals with some revisions to my yard area following the receipt of a Graham Farish Scenecraft coaling tower which I had been awaiting for quite some time. The revisions to the yard also included adding more parking tracks to the Kato turntable. Here's an initial view of the coaling tower and the box that it came in. I bought this from Osborne Models in the UK. When I ordered it, I thought I was getting a new item, but I don't believe that was actually the case, as the box had some damage and some of the railings and lights were a little bit bent, and also some small parts appeared to be missing, most noticeably the ladder running from ground level up to the first platform, which I'm sure is supposed to be present. Still, the coaling tower is quite a handsome item. I've added the missing ladder here. Seen at the back, I stole a ladder from a white metal signal kit. Here's a non-flash view. You can see the ladder that was missing quite clearly at the back right of the picture on the box. The ladder that I found doesn't have a railing, but at least it's the correct length and looks like a reasonable way of getting up to that platform. I suspect that there should also have been another set of those little steps seen at left. I only got one set, but I think there probably should be a set to go on the other end as well. Here's the coaling tower on the layout. The rails for lifting the coal wagons up are not actually fixed to the tower itself at all, so you have some leeway as to what angle you put them at, meaning that you're not committed to an exact separation of tracks. I'm obviously squeezing things a bit to fit this large tower into my small yard area. However, looking at pictures of real towers of this sort, the wagon lifting rails did go up at a very steep angle. Here's a picture of the tower at the ex-LMS yard at Carnforth in Lancashire, which is, I believe, the one on which the Graham Farish item is modelled. And here's a picture of a slightly different type of LMS coaling tower with a wagon in process of being hauled up to deposit coal into the tower. And back to the Farish model on my layout. This is, in this view, just really an initial trial. I haven't wired the points to the siding with the tower yet, and I also haven't added the extra parking tracks to the turntable, which was another task intended as part of this revision of the yard once the coaling tower arrived. Here's another view, still in trial status. You can see the ladder that I added to replace the missing one quite clearly at the front right. That's just bare white metal. I haven't got around to painting it yet. And the same view without flash. Yes, I dither constantly as to the virtues of flash and non-flash pictures. As previously noted, once I got the coaling tower and was able to firm up the layout of the revised yard area, I also wanted to add more loco parking tracks to the Kato turntable. There wasn't really room for any more sheds, no matter what I might do, but I thought it would still be useful to have more open parking tracks for locos, so I bought another turntable extension set seen here from Otter Valley Railroad in Tillsonburg, Ontario. This set allows you to add 3 more straight tracks coming off the turntable, and also 3 more stub buffer tracks, which are necessary as you never want to have a track on the table with nothing on the opposite side, otherwise locos can just run off and derail. Here are the contents of the extension set: 3 straight connecting tracks, 2 3-track connection pieces, 3 stub buffer tracks with their buffers on a separate plastic sprue, and a bag of connectors, including some half-size ones which are needed when connecting the access tracks, as their ends are very close together where they meet the table. Here I've taken the buffer tracks and buffers out of their bag. The buffers are a wee bit of a pain, actually. The black buffers themselves are kind of strange looking, and they're extremely fragile. I always seem to manage to break 1 or 2 of them whilst installing modifications to the turntable. Because I weathered the turntable to get it to blend better with the rest of my layout, and specifically with the yard area, I needed to similarly modify these new pieces. Basically, this involved painting the light grey plastic areas a darker grey. Specifically, I used Grau Violet enamel intended for Luftwaffe modelling, as that was the closest I had on hand to the colour I wanted. Painting all these parts without getting paint on tracks, contacts, etc. was a rather exacting and tedious task. Here you can see it part way. The track on the left's been painted, the track in the middle hasn't been painted at all, and the track on the right's halfway painted. Here are all of the add-on parts painted and ready for installation. Well, I also needed to take the buffers off their sprues and fit them to the buffer tracks. As I said, these are very fragile and easily broken, and they're not really very good looking. They do stop locos, though. To install the new tracks, the covers are removed from the sections where they will go on connecting to the table. The covers are held on each by a single small screw, which is covered by a little plastic plate. I've put the screws and cover plates into the pit of the turntable, as they should be safe there while I finish the installation. I marked out where I needed to cut into the foam of the baseboard by drawing round the new tracks with a pencil. And I did the same thing on the side where the buffer tracks needed to go. Then I used a craft knife to cut out the top layer of foam. I put a work light onto the layout so I could see properly what I was doing. Just cutting through the top half-inch layer of foam where marked in pencil. Then the top layer piece needs to be pried out. The layers were stuck together when I built the board with construction adhesive. It made a strong enough joint to hold the layers in place, but the adhesive wasn't really spread evenly over the whole surface, so it isn't that hard to pry a piece off. I used a steel ruler to get it started. And the buffer piece was similarly cut and pried out. You can see the attaching screw and its cover plate lying in the pit next to where I've taken the piece out. You can also see a broken buffer there. I noticed I broke one of the, at the bottom left there, that's a broken off buffer because I broke the buffer trying to pry the piece out. So I had to glue that back on with super glue. Told you I always manage to seem to break one of those buffers trying to do these things. It doesn't take much of a touch to break them. Next, I cut pieces of dollar store foam board for the bottoms of the two cavities, since I didn't want to recess things the whole half-inch. Since I was intending to use these extensions just as parking tracks, as this was all that I had room for, I needed to put buffers onto the ends of them. These are one type of standard Kato buffer, not really ideal, but they'll do for now. And here are those tracks installed. There's hardly room even for this. One of the buffers is overlapping the verge of the road. I ended up cutting the end off that one at an angle, and I had to move a telegraph pole. The next job was to properly install the tracks to the location for the coaling tower and to wire the points. I had something of a minor disaster doing this. I was trying to use a brace and bit to drill through the door on which the baseboard is fixed and shook things too much, causing an earthquake on the layout, which knocked over some buildings, signals, etc., and derailed many wagons. Quite a job to clean up. This picture is... well, it's basically after I picked things up, but before I really cleaned up. The hole that I was making when I did this is the little pink blob seen in the centre right, in the gap between the tracks. This hole is necessary in order to pass the connecting wire for the points through the baseboard so it can be connected up to the control centre so you can operate the points remotely. And here is the result after cleaning up and putting things back. I actually put the tracks to the coaling tower a little more to the right than I really intended, making the tower very close to the viaduct and meaning there was no room left in the yard for the small shed, which has now been moved to the far side of the viaduct. You can see it at the centre right in this picture. I should have been more careful to mark exactly where things were supposed to go, but I'm not going to alter it now. Here's another view of the revised yard. Those are Metcalf workers' cottages in the foreground. And another view without flash. When I caused the earthquake, several items fell clean off the board, and I was lucky that worse damage didn't result. I do have sidings very close to the edge, so I decided to put a wall behind the sidings closest to the edge, as much to stop things falling off as for cosmetic reasons. I printed some brick paper on my PC printer, which is kind of decrepit and really doesn't print colour very well, as you can sort of see here. Then I cut a piece of the same pink insulating foam that the board is made from, 1/2-inch pink, whatever it is, styrene insulating foam, and sprayed it grey. I stuck the brick paper onto the foam and then stuck the resulting wall to the edge of the board using Walther's contact cement, which is a relatively new type of adhesive to me, and I'm still not too sure about it. It's not an ideal, as the paper, as usual, didn't go down really flat. I'd originally thought about using Metcalfe retaining wall kits, which would certainly look much nicer, but they produce quite a small section of wall, so I would have needed 3 or 4 kits for what I wanted, making the exercise a bit expensive. And also the Metcalfe retaining walls are very three-dimensional, with quite deep arches, which would make attaching them at the edge of the board tricky. Here's a Coronation class loco in LMS black livery on the viaduct going past the end, the back of the coaling tower. One issue with the new parking tracks is that they can't be used to park locos as large as that Coronation class. It will fit onto one of the tracks, but then it will come so close to the edge of the turntable itself that, given how close together the access tracks are at that point, there won't be room for another loco to get past onto the adjacent tracks. You can see the 3 new parking tracks left here, and they're in use with smallish locos on each of them. So long as the new parking tracks are only used to park fairly small locos, everything works fine. Here the locos parked are left to right: a Fairburn 264 tank engine, a Fowler 4F060 tender loco, and a 3F Ginty tank engine, all in LMS black livery, and these are all Graham Farish models. Fairly current Graham Farish models, unlike a lot of the stuff I've got, which is older. But you can certainly still buy the Fairburn and the Ginty, and you may still be able to buy the Fowler. As you can see, these locos fit fine and are able to get in and out individually with no problems. So that's it for the revisions to the yard area for now. Now let me just try to show you a little video of the revised yard in operation. Okay, I just wanted to see if I could make a little video here to show you the redone yard a bit. We'll see, I don't know what you can really see in here. These are the 3 new parking tracks that were put in on the turntable. They're just open parking tracks for locos. As you can see, they're okay with 3 small locos here. That's the Ginty, the Fowler, and the Fairburn. But you put a full-length express loco on there and it comes too close to the end, and the tracks are so close at the end that you wouldn't be able to get another loco off. There's 3 new buffer tracks opposite that, because you need the buffer tracks opposite. This is the Graham Farish coaling tower that I've now got installed, although it's got where it should have coal wagons coming up to feed it. It's just got some goods wagons sitting now. Okay, so let's see if we can move that goods train out there. We'll try anyway. So we'll bring the turntable round, and we'll bring, I don't know, who shall we try and use? I guess that's the Ginty. And we want to go away from the little house on the turntable, the control house. We'll bring the Ginty onto the turntable, onto the table. Take the table round back to its exit track. Set the power for the inner zone to anti-clockwise. Yes, and we do have the right point set. Bring the Ginty off the turntable there. And then we'll set that point back. Now the problem is he probably won't couple. So it won't move now. He's not moving. Oh, so I changed the wrong point, didn't I? I didn't want to change that point, I want to change that point. I want to change the point behind him, not the point in front of him. Okay, I can't blame him for that. Underneath, that's the Graham Farish sanding plant he's going under, and then that's the ash plant, because this is really supposed to be a low-coat. No, I don't think he's going to auto-couple to those, is he? Ooh, no, yeah, I have a feeling he probably won't. This is the wrong, they don't auto-couple, well, they don't. No, I'm not going to be able to get him to auto-couple, I don't think. If I'm going to make that work, I'm going to have to manually couple him. Okay. With a bit of a luck, that might work, but I don't know. Don't you just hate rapido couplings? But the problem is trying to convert all my British N-gauge stuff to anything else would be such a job. There you go, he's pulling that goods train out of there now at least. Not that he's going to go very far with it, quite frankly. But anyway, there you go. So he's pulled that goods train out of there. Alright, now let's just see if we can say, for example, bring the fowler back under there to be coaled from the coaling tower. Away from the little house. Back to the main exit, and then I'm going to have to check the points on time. Yes, that's not going to be right now. We ought to set that point. Now we set that point. Oh, it's noon. We get all the clocks are chiming. And we have to wait a moment until all of the clocks stop chiming. Yes, and we'll set that point there as well. Yes. Lot of clocks chiming at noon. Okay, I'm going to take the fowler back round. I think I've set the points correctly. Back under the ash plant. No, that's the sanding plant, I beg your pardon. Under the ash plant. And down under the coaling tower here. Famous last words. There you go. I don't know. He's under the coaling tower. Let's hope he comes out. There's probably not a tremendous amount of room under there. He may be catching his dome on it. That's the height it is. The only way to raise it would be to stand it on something. Oh, well, can we get him out again? Yes, we can. Oh, yeah, there you go. There's Mr. Fowler under the ash plant. And then under the sanding plant. Fill his sand up, and then he's off on his way. Oh, by the way, the sound you're hearing there is the Kato sound box, not the clocks chiming, obviously, but the other sounds, the other sounds of the Kato sound box with a C57, C59 card. That's their Japanese steam locomotives. I bought the US Light steam card initially, and I don't mind that. Then I tried the Japanese C12 card. This is the Japanese C12, C57, C59 card. I didn't like it at all at first, but it's sort of grown on me. It's this weird kind of rather muted chug, chuff, chuff. Change those points. I'll just take the fowler around backwards like engine a bit there. I don't know what he's doing there. He's going to do something. something, but there you go. Hopefully if that worked, that gave you something of a view of how the changes to the yard have been set up now.